My friends, what an absolute pleasure this is. This is always so much fun to do for me.
Isn't it?
I got to be honest with you guys. You're probably looking at the beautiful La Jolla Shores, which is directly behind us right now. I'm here with some of my absolute favorite people on the face of this planet. We have Aisha behind the camera right now. She's all wrapped up right now. She looks like just imagine
like
a
a
Jedi
tamale.
wrapped up in
You
a
said a tamale.
Or that too. I've got my boy Andrew here. We've been doing this. We were calling this at one point the Anywhere and Anything podcast, and then we switched it and we said, I'm sorry I wasn't listening. And one of the reasons that we said that, Chris, and I'm going to introduce you in just a moment, but I just want you to get a feel for where we're going with this, is because we found that a lot of issues, any and all issues, it doesn't matter if you are a bird watcher or if you are trying to solve world hunger, we felt like a lot of issues were not being heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we felt like people were not truly listening, and they were just finding. My mom used to say, "Are you listening to speak afterwards? Are you listening to understand?"
Yep.
So, with that being said, we happened upon an amazing guest, Chris Gordert here, who has lived an absolute full life, and we're really, really happy that you could join us on this journey. Chris and I actually do a podcast separately called High Vibes Only, which is coming out actually really, really soon.
Yep.
We've shot about 4 or 5 episodes. We wanted to make sure we had some in the tank, and we finally found our forever home, probably, or
Yep.
That's
and
what's
and
up.
shout out to Keanu, which, by the way, we have the cake brand on today. Shout out to All Feria. We've got All Feria on today. Shout out to Mondo. So we really, as we dig into this, we really want to just remember that the purpose of what we're all trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that we gain ground. It doesn't matter on what, it doesn't matter with who. We just want to make sure that we gain ground. We want to make sure that we do some discovery. There's going to be laughs along the way. There's going to be a lot of positivity, hopefully, and there will probably be some sadder moments, but all of it is for the purpose of gaining ground. So, Chris, for you, I've always really wanted to ask this question, and I know maybe I've asked it in a couple of different ways, but I've always wanted to ask it this way. What are your concerns from a societal perspective as we move into this next year? What are you seeing that scares you or that worries you about us as a society?
So this is going to be kind of like a weird answer because it's almost like a double-edged sword because I'm actually in this industry. It's the social media aspects of life. The way people are seeing others win and not seeing their losses because people only show their highlight reels. So people are starting to kill themselves because they're seeing other people's live a certain lifestyle that is not real. And then they're comparing it to their lives, and then they're becoming depressed because of it, because they think that their lives aren't worthy of what they're seeing from others. I think that, as a societal standpoint, is going to be our detriment and our downfall, because everything that we're seeing is an illusion, right? And I'm someone that has whatever influence, and then I post things. That's why I try to be vulnerable and show the weak points too, because I think it's important for people to see someone exactly who they are. And a lot of influencers don't look at it like that. They look at, you're only going to see my best because we don't want you to think that we fall, we fail, and that we have rough spots. And I want to show those rough spots because I think I and the people that I hang out with, we all feel like it's our responsibility to put it forward for the generation behind us, because I think that that's kind of how life is in the circle of life. Is once you go through shit, you heal from shit, and then you let others heal from it as well. So I think that if we can actually get to a standpoint on being more vulnerable, showing the things that we're actually going through, so that we can let someone see the relative, the things that they can relate to or resonate with.
Yeah.
And then they can find their own struggle and see our own struggles, and then they could find their way through what we've been through. I think that right now is our biggest problem, and that's why we're seeing, one, I think that men are having a hard time talking about things, and now that's starting to be talked about. But I think that we're also comparing our lives way too much to others because we think that they're living better lives than us.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So
Wow.
I take a lot of responsibility from that, because I have a part to do with that. Because if I post something and it gets 100,000 views or whatever, that's 100,000 people that might have seen something and created their own mindset of what they saw from me. So if I'm not doing my due diligence and making sure that they are receptive in the ways that they can cause change for the better for themselves, then I think I'm being a disservice to everybody else. I had to get to a point in my life that I was like, I actually have influence. I have to take this responsibility seriously. And if I don't, I could be at fault for someone deciding maybe my life isn't as good as his. I don't think I should live anymore. I don't want that responsibility. I want the responsibility of being like, I fall. I know you guys look up to me. but this is where these are my shortcomings. I want you guys to understand that life is still hard for me, even though it looks cool. Life is still hard, and I think that if you understand, as a person that's looked from the outside looking in, that a person that if I'm looking into one of these rich people's houses right now and I see them crying, it kind of makes me feel a little bit better that I'm not in that house too. I understand that all people have problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just because you're crying in a Ferrari doesn't mean your life is so much better. It might be just have a better place to cry at.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
yes,
dang.
I do understand what you're saying. When they talk about this time in the future, Andrew, I don't think that they're going to say the things that we want them to say unless we start making some changes. And I just want to let that breathe for a second. I'm worried that the history will write itself as these individuals got caught up the moment that they found a way to see everyone and anyone. They got caught up. They're going to look back on this time of social media. Maybe it'll get worse, but they're going to look back on this time of social media and they're going to be like, man, back in the day, you used to only be able to see 20 to 30 people, right? Remember when we talked about, I think it was like Dunbar's number or something like that. We talked about on the first podcast. We discussed, you used to be in a tribe of like maybe 150 people max was how many people that you knew. Now you can be connected to thousands, millions of people. Do you understand how insane it is to see somebody who has a following of 1 million people? You just see one M. Do you know like how like the terrifying amount of power that you have of influence over that group of individuals? Because you're not influencing 1 million people. You're influencing one person who sees you influencing 1 million people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like Chris, between his platforms, has well over a few 100,000 people who pay attention. Like, trust me, I'm helping him with some of the content and working with him on some of the content and vice versa. And I'm watching these people, and I help him with the social media, and I see people reach out to him, if I can speak on this, and they're like, hey, look, I stayed alive today because of some things that you posted. That's both the most beautiful thing in the world, and it's terrifying. Because how do we manage that type of responsibility? And the answer probably is something along the lines of, you just do the best that you can, and you always have to lead with intent.
Yeah.
Andrew, you're a person that leads with intent. When you began your journey to becoming a young man, I have a two-parter for you that I really want to dig into. We talked a little bit about the influences last time, so actually let's just make this one part. Moving forward as a young man, are you cognizant of people paying attention to you and what you do, your family members, the people in your church, the people in your livelihood? Are you cognizant of what you do and how those behaviors affect other individuals?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Yes, in the sense of I'm better at it now, kind of like understanding like your actions do have an effect on people, let alone even your words. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that, is that your words, you know, people's like, oh, sticks and stones may break my blah, 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 words don't. It's like, I've now realized at the fact that like your words have just as much of an effect as your actions. And so when it comes to like you said, family, friends, you know, people at church, it's like being more self-aware of like, I gotta think before I speak. I can't let my emotions. I'm an emotional man, you know. And I hope we can, you know, hang out with all you guys a lot more, so you'll see, and you've seen it. Like I'm a very emotional man. Like I allow myself to show my emotions a lot. Sometimes a little bit more than I should. And so being more cognizant in that aspect, being like, okay, like, yeah, it's good as a man to allow yourself to show those emotions, but like, I can't let it control me to where like it affects other relationships. And so being more cognizant in that aspect, like thinking before I speak. You know, people are like, oh, like it's easier said than done, but it's like, it is, but it's like, that's something that I have to practice every single day. Is not just with my relationships with, you know, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, you know, and this is for everyone listening, it's like also with your friendships, also with family members, because all those conversations, the way you speak to people, it's all going to be different. The way I speak to, you know, Chris is going to be different from the way I speak to you. The way I speak to Chris is going to be different from the way I speak to Aisha, so on and so forth. And so it's like being more self-aware in that aspect, and it's hard. Like, I've said some messed up things. And I've had to have people in my inner circle be like, yo, like, you got to chill out. Like, you got to watch what you're saying. Like, you got to watch how you're doing stuff and how you move and things like that. Because it's like, now that people are seeing you, and especially like for those who like have a bigger following, it's like hearing that from you, Chris, is like, dang, like it's a cool thing that I have that much power, but it's also a scary thing. And so just when you said that, I was like, dang, if I was put in that position to have that following, have that power, it'd be scary. Because I'm like, now I have to watch every single thing I say, but I also have to be very intentional with how my life is actually going.
Yeah.
So it's a big, huge balance.
Yeah, Chris does an amazing job at it, because you'll find this humor, this beautiful humor that flows from him naturally, and we all get to laugh, but he's always looking for value from himself and from what we do to be able to provide. Like, he's not just gonna get online. I'm gonna just toot your horn for you, bro. Like, he's not just gonna get online just to get online. You know what I mean? Like, he's got purpose in everything that he does.
It's with intent.
Yeah.
It's with intent.
It's intentional.
Which speaks back to what you said, hanging around us and being around us to show that emotion. I think that the reason that I'm really happy that you're around now is because I am still afraid to show those levels of emotion. Like, I talked with Chris about this. Like, he was like, bro, get in front of the camera, do this, do that. And I was like, man, I'm nervous, I'm scared. And I wasn't ready to tell the world those emotions. I wasn't ready to tell the world those feelings. And because he has this strength, he makes me feel like, well, if I say something, Chris has got my back. You actually have a different perspective. When I am with you, I'm like, oh, I'm just okay being me, even just by myself, and feeling confident and comfortable with sharing those type of emotions. Because it like, the team is very important, and that's why we're all helping each other to grow. Yeah. But as an individual, you should still be able to move through life and have that confidence as an individual that you can speak your truth, right? And you will face backlash. Like, you just have to accept you will face backlash, because not
100%.
Everybody's as healed, or not everybody's as forward, progressive as we are. Yeah. Right? We're drifting into, and Andrew, we want to get you on at some point, we're drifting into a lot of what High Vibes Only talks about. We really discuss the mental strength and fortitude for, at first it was for young men, and now I think we're quickly realizing it's going to end up being for everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
We quickly began to discuss these problems and these trials and tribulations, and I have just found that what you both are talking about is so relevant in today's time. I was watching a podcast earlier, and the gentleman, we all know him, he's going through a lot of stuff, it was Andrew Tate, right? And I noticed that a lot of what he was talking about, there was so much truth into it. And I'm hearing so many people say there was truth. But the problem was, in between all of these beautiful truths was, in my opinion, a poor way of deliverance. Like, the way that he was delivering certain things seemed to either be for the clicks, or maybe it's because he really truly feels that way. I don't know, because I'm not him. We talked earlier about, like, we don't really know who these people are. Like, we don't spend time in their lives. They don't spend time in ours. And what I think that we are set out to do slightly differently is we still uphold masculinity, which I want to talk about a little bit later.
I actually want to talk about it too, yeah.
But we don't turn that masculinity against anyone else. So tell me, how do you do that?
So I'm sitting here listening, and first of all, I'm glad that you brought up the emotional part, because there's this stigma about being a man that you're not allowed to be emotional, right? And then Andrew Tate talks about it too, that you just put your feelings aside. And there are some things that I agree with Andrew Tate on, but that's one thing I just don't, because I know what it feels like to withhold that emotion and to feel like you're going to explode. And because of the depiction on what people expect you to be opposed to who you are, I feel like that's when you're not aligned with yourself and you can't be yourself 100%, that's where your whole depression comes from. You're not aligned with the person that you're supposed to be, and you're constantly fighting the resistance to be someone else that someone expects you to be. And so when I look at emotions, as a man, I think that you're gonna have to be able to deal with a lot more adversity than, say, somebody else. But with that adversity, you harden your feelings through that. You learn how to deal with emotions and all those other things. I think if you're going to close off your emotions completely, then you better be ready to explode then. I think that being emotional made me a better partner. It made me a better partner, a better father, a better brother, everything. So when I was able to look at my girl and be like, you know, you mean the world to me. I love you, and I got you no matter what. And we were able to embrace each other and have emotional moments. That's where our relationship grew. It's the moments that I see my friends shut off emotionally from their partners, and then they lash out because they're scared of their own emotions. That's where the problems are. We don't feel like we can talk. Men feel like we can't talk to nobody because then we're going to be judged as pussies, we're being a bitch, or whatever, right? So then my big message is heal what you've been through, and then talk about it with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Voice it, because that's where the healing is. And I told my girl this because she's been helping a lot of her friends that are going through a lot of struggle. She used a situation from her past, and when she brought it up, she had never talked about it, and she's never used it in a way to help others. In that moment, she healed herself, even though she was trying to heal somebody else. That moment of her speaking out and then using her lessons as a learning tool for someone else, that is growth. That's evolution. As a human being, we should be able to talk about the things that hurt us, and then we should give back to the people that don't know how to get through it. We should tell our stories in a way that people resonate, and they're like, I appreciate what you did in telling us, because I was scared to talk about it, because I'm scared of what people think of me. You know what I'm saying? Like we talked about our house earlier, right? It's the people that have the least amount of information, have the least amount of relevance, or whatever the quote was, is that we're letting all these people have this opinion about us that they don't even deserve to be in the same room as us, right? So it's with me, I took that leap of faith in the journey for myself because of my girl and because of my kids. Because I knew that I was hindering everybody else around me because I wasn't willing to be man enough to address my emotions.
Yeah.
And I say that in a way because it's not manly to look at your emotions and do it, but now I've evolved and I broke through this barrier that was like, the most manly thing you can do is talk about it. Because that shows so much courage that you're willing to go up against the norm and be like, man, look, I've been through something and I was depressed and I was down and out. This is how I fixed myself.
Yeah.
And to this day, there's things that like I just see that I will immediately start crying about. And then that's when she begins to love me the most, because then she sees that vulnerability and that I'm willing to have those moments with her. And then so it's reciprocated now, that when she feels like she can have those moments with me, man, we're like on a whole nother level in terms of vibration and how we look at life. Because when you find a partner, you look for a teammate. We're not looking for someone just to sit by my side and then if I'm making a lot of money that you let me pay for your bills or whatever. We're not looking for that. We're looking for a partnership. This is a team sport. I've always been in team sports, and I've always been a captain, and I want to lead this team. You have to be a teammate. You can't be a water boy on my team and expect me to take care of you, and vice versa. She's not going to take care of me. We're a team. If I'm the quarterback, you're the running back. This is the play we're going to do. It's third down. We're in a fucking tough moment. Let's fucking figure this out. You know what I mean? This is our team. And if we win the game, then we win the game together. If we lose together, then we lose together. But I'm willing to do it with her.
Yeah.
Dang.
You know what I mean?
How long have you been in your relationship?
4 years. It's
Okay.
been 4 years, babe.
4 years. How long have you been in your relationship?
Few months.
Few months.
Few months.
So here's an interesting contrast. I'm single, so
Yeah.
let me just throw me out. I have questions for
Yeah.
when I get there. Let's phrase it like that.
Yeah,
Let's put it in
yeah,
a
yeah.
positive light. How early on were you aware that you could share your emotions, and how did she respond? And then I want to know where you are in that same space now in a few months.
So I think I might be like an off case, because I got thrown into so much adversity very early in our relationship. So I had to choose. Do I either suppress my emotions and then become a ticking time bomb, or release a little bit of it, a little bit at a time, and then try to gauge how my partner feels about it? Then is she receptive to what I'm saying? And then once she, she made me feel comfortable, then I can open up a little bit more. So I think we fast-tracked a process that might take people 10, 15, 20 years to do. But because of the avalanche of adversity that we had to face right in the first year of our relationship, it forced me in a position of vulnerability. And she was receptive to that. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have a partner that wasn't receptive to the emotions that I was feeling, because they were real. When I got out of court and I couldn't see my kids and I started crying, that was real. I dropped to my knees. That was real. That was all real. And she was there to pick me up. She picked me up off my knees and said, I got you. Don't worry. Like, gave me a big hug. Like, that's the stuff that you need. And as a man, we should feel comfortable enough with our partner that if life ever brings us to our knees, that we will have someone that will help us up.
Dang.
That's the power that I'm looking for in my partner. And I know that now that she sees it, that's the power that she sees in me. Is that we need, in those moments of we're not feeling as strong as we could, we need someone to carry the burden slightly so that we can rest and get back to neutral, because that's where real partnerships lie. You know what I mean?
Dang. That's
Andrew,
couple goes right there.
I know, facts.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Couple goes right there.
I'm like, we just need 1,000 more Aishas.
Look, I should just look at her phone like, yeah, whatever, bitch.
However many more
I've
Aishas
heard
we
this
can
shit
find.
before.
I was
Aisha,
like,
we need to start
dang.
coaching women. Like, we need to do a course. This guy, Top G's got what, the university? He's got Hustlers University. We
Let me
need
say this.
Aisha to do it.
Aisha
That's
University.
the one thing that I disagree with Andrew Tate, is that he never talks about having a great partner. And I've heard through the grapevine that he has a wife and he has kids. He just doesn't want to put them in the limelight. But I think that he's missing a real valuable teaching tool, because now he has all these eyes. So all these guys are really looking up to him to see what they should be. And they don't value partnerships. They value a woman that's beautiful and all these other things and what they think that woman should be.
But they don't value partnerships.
Exactly.
Oh, you're right.
Like he thinks that a woman is not equal to him in a relationship. He's the moneymaker. He's everything. The woman abide by his rules. But I don't think like that. I think that our power she's giving us a thumbs down behind the camera. I think that it's important to have a partner that can carry the weight if things get rough. Because if you're a man and you're willing to take the risk of being successful, you're gonna fall down.
Yeah.
I've opened up so many businesses and I've fallen down so many times, and I never had someone there to pick me up. And the one time that I really needed the most, she was there to pick me up.
Dang.
And that's what you need, because as much as Andrew Tate is doing all these things, I bet you he needs a woman by his side right now. He might have his brother, he might have all this stuff, but he's getting locked up for things that maybe he might not have done or whatever. I don't know the case. But that's the moment that you need your partner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The woman that's going to come and see you in jail and be like, I love you, I'm waiting for you. It's going to be okay. I'll never give up on you.
Taking care of things. The
Yeah.
home
Exactly.
And
the
I
home
feel
is
like-
taken
Exactly.
To not to beat a dead horse or anything, I feel like talking back as far as like the social media thing,
Mm-hmm.
it all comes back together. It's like you see, even with like the whole Andrew Tate thing, you see like that the only thing like he's kind of portraying, or even social media is portraying, is like a woman's just important for like the physicalness, the looks and stuff like that. That's all that they're good for. And I feel like that's the way they're going. It's like, that's like, I agree with you. Like I want a partner that if I'm gonna fall down, they're gonna be there with me. You know, we talked about past relationship where I fell down. You know, I was up here helping. I fell down.
She wasn't there.
She wasn't there. She
Wasn't
walked
there.
out doing, you know, stuff with other guys. And it's like, that's the part where I was like, dang, and that broke my trust.
Yep.
Especially with, you know, new relationship. I'm like, how can I trust another woman to be able to help me when I'm down? So I agree with you completely. And now, like, obviously just barely meeting you, like hearing all that stuff, I'm like, dang, like Aisha, start a, you know, Hustlers University, Aisha University type of stuff. You know what I mean? And so it's like, with that, like, I feel like that needs to be something that we need to show, especially with that emotion and being able to allow ourselves to be like, dang, because for the longest time, I was like, if she walked out, you know, that was a 3-year relationship, and she walked out the one time that I fell down, it's like, the next one's gonna do the same thing, the next one's gonna do the same thing, the next one's gonna do the same, and that was so tough for me to get out of.
Yeah.
Even being like already an emotional person, I was like, I don't want to be emotional. It's like, F the emotions. I'm gonna close them off. But then I noticed, I was like, I'm gonna be a ticking time bomb. And so it's like one of those things. And so that's why I like what you said. It's like, I'm okay with seeing, because looking at you, he's big motherfucker. Like, excuse my language, big man. You won't know. Like, just looking at you, I'm like, oh, this guy's not emotional. He's, you know, he's just hides his emotion. But now hearing all of it, I'm like, dang, it allows me to be like, okay, if this guy, the platform that he has and how strong he is and all that, is an emotional dude with, you know, his girl and stuff like that, then it's okay for me to be like that.
You're making a great point, Andrew, but you already had that, so I don't want you to.
Yeah, no. But I'm saying like mostly like for other people that are looking.
Oh,
I already
okay.
had that,
like
like
a reassurance.
okay.
like a it's like a reassurance, because I was already like that.
Yeah. So my question becomes for you, Andrew, because you were already like that, and I think it's just important for us to acknowledge this. You moved in this new relationship. I'm really glad that you brought it up, because I was a little nervous about bringing up your last relationship. Have you already shared what happened in your last relationship in your new relationship?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, what did that dialogue go like, and how did she respond? Clearly, she's still around, which I think is a good sign. Did she answer your fears correctly? How did that go down? I'm just curious.
She answered them great. Like, she's top notch. Like,
I was able
to like right off the bat, be already vulnerable and emotional with how I was feeling about that. Even now, like, you know, like Chris mentioned, he's like, you know, there's certain things that, like, if I look at it or it comes up, like, I cry instantly. And for me, same thing, like, when I think about certain things, I'm an overthinker. So I'm a very emotional overthinker as well. Those clash. It, like, you know, I'm just a mess. And so sometimes in that aspect, when those times do come, like, she notices it. You know, I'll tap my thumbs, I'll tap my feet, and she, like, grabs onto me, and she's like, you're all good. It's very comforting, goes out of her way to do everything. And it's nice, because it's like, excuse me, now hearing what Chris says, it's like those things align to him, like, oh, like, she does that. Like, she goes out, like, I'm able to be emotional. And sometimes I get scared still, and it's always a learning process. The relationship is always gonna be a learning process. I get scared that I don't want to talk about things. And she's like, just tell me. I'm like, nah, I'm good, I'm fine. Like when I say I'm fine, I'm really not fine. And I feel like that's most of it. When I
That's
say
what
I'm fine,
anybody says,
I'm really
I'm
not fine. And so I would say it constantly. Like I said it the other day, driving for somewhere. I started overthinking. I'm like, she's like, what's wrong? I was like, oh, I'm fine. She's like, what's wrong? For like 30 minutes. I was like, no, I'm fine. You're good. So finally, we started talking about it. And I was like, this is what's going on. And she's like, you're good. She's like, it's fine. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Like, let's talk about it. We talked about it. And it's constantly a learning process. But like right off the bat, I was able to be vulnerable, but it took so long. It took a lot of stuff. Honestly, like we talked about last episode, if it wasn't for therapy, I feel like
you would have went the other route.
I would have went the other route. I would have went the douche route. I would have went the route of being like, F you, being what we call a dog, doing all that stuff. But allowing myself to be in that and reminding myself like, Andrew, this isn't like, you're not that type of guy. Like I've never been like that. Go back to your roots and who you actually are as an individual, as a man, and stay true to that regardless of what social media and the world has to say. Mm-hmm. And it's a learning process for everyone. It's a learning process.
Like all of life. We have to be cognizant of watching out where we receive information from.
No, 100%.
I often refer to life as input and output. Output, of course, is what you're putting out into this world. Input is what you're receiving. I'm cognizant of the TV. I'm cognizant of the songs. I'm aware of the posts that I see. And I am on a constant, it's like being on a treadmill. You have to remember to keep walking, because if you stop, you will slip and fall. And I promise you, there is an ungodly amount of content that is pumped to us every day. All the different things I just named across all the different landscapes. TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I really actually am almost jealous and envious of people who don't have any of those things. Mm-hmm. Like we do it almost from a business perspective, and some of it is because we care about the people we're around, so we want to see you succeed, and we want to succeed with you. But I really am envious of people who are able to shut all that off, because that's so much less input that they have to receive. Of course, we're cognizant of the output that we muster up and put into this world, but how are you guys mitigating input to make sure that you are only taking in what you need and you're filtering out all
question.
of that?
I was like hoping that you led us in a way that I could say this. So I'm gonna take another I'm just gonna backtrack on what I said about social media, because that is the problem. But now I feel like it's part of the solution as well, because like I told you in our last podcast, in my deepest, darkest time, I really needed words of encouragement, and it was a post on TikTok that helped pull me out of that hole. I think if we can understand social media is made to reflect anything that you are, in terms of whatever your interests are, whatever you're looking at. They look at your watch time, they look at what you like, what you share, and what you save. Whatever that you do with those things, they show you other content that's similar to that. I understood that when I was going through my darkest phase. I only liked super high spiritual stuff. And then when I did that, all it showed me was ways to get through dark times. So when I would go on my TikTok, I would scroll, every single thing would be how I was going to get out of my depression. What are the different tricks that I could use to actually heal myself? And as bad as some people are, and they're only using the platform for bad things, there's a whole nother army of good people that are putting out real good content and that want to make a change in the world. We have to position ourselves to find those people. And I do that through what the things that I like. So as calculated as I am with what I say, I'm more calculated with what I like on my social media. So like I will literally only go through, and she knows that, whenever she looks at my phone, I won't let her like nothing, because I only like super specific things because I want to see more of that. The algorithm's smart. You can use it to benefit yourself. And that's what I did in my lowest time, is I only like shit that I knew that was going to pull me out the hole.
So a conscious use of the algorithm to ensure that your input that you receive stays pure to what you want.
I haven't seen a person dance on TikTok in years, because I don't look at that shit. I don't like that shit. I don't save that shit.
That's weird. I just posted a dance video the other day. You
didn't like it?
You're not my algorithm.
Let's just post dancing videos after you.
I won't see any of it.
So we just left off in our last segment, and we were really discussing input and output. And Chris, you made a really interesting point about your ability to fluctuate or or manipulate rather the algorithm that you have on your social media apps. You made a point that I thought was both hilarious and profound at the same time. You haven't seen a dancing video on TikTok in years, and that's amazing because TikTok is pretty much all dancing videos.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like I just got on a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of want to talk about that too. When I got on, they start pumping the content that they think you might like. They're not quite sure where you are, and then as you settle into a space, you really do see that they are listening, watching, observing what you do, and they're trying to keep you on that application for as long as they physically can. Do you spend a lot of time on social media, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
More or less?
More or less, yeah.
I'm not going to ask you so much how you manipulate what you're seeing, but are you seeing more good than bad, or are you seeing more bad than good? Just a relative umbrella.
For social media?
Yeah.
Both, honestly.
It's a mixture, right?
It's like a mixture. You said he's like, just like there's a, I guess you want to quote it, the bad army. There's also like the good army. It just depends which one you choose to look at.
I'm going to throw both of us under the bus at the same time. You ready? Cool. I am really beginning to wonder if what Chris is saying is so true that it's actually a mirror, it's a reflection of what we're doing that's affecting us in our ability to see those negative and positive things, right? Like, I'm glad there's a balance. I'm glad it's not all negative, but I'm seeing all this negative stuff, and I'm wondering if it's because I stay on it longer, or I click on it and I'm like engaged, and I'm like, wait, that's not how I feel. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we support those bad things. It could be quite the opposite. It could be that we're spending time there because we're trying to fight the good fight and change the narrative. But what Chris has done is completely moved himself away from that space and said, we have to find the army of good and reinforce that before we can go and fight this darkness. Am I right or am I wrong?
So what the biggest thing that I think made a difference for me is that I took responsibility of my own energy. Because I realized that, yeah, I can put certain people around me, but I'm on my phone more than I am with other people. So that if I'm seeing shit on my phone, then I'm becoming shit, right? So then that's when I realized that's when I was like, everything I'm regurgitating and taking in, I will become whatever that is. So I took responsibility of the things I was watching. So if I saw something that I knew isn't in my wheelhouse or what I want to become, I immediately scroll. I will not spend a second more watching that shit because I know and I understand now the algorithm, if they think I want to see it, they will show me more of that. So there was this one time, maybe a couple weeks ago, I was just scrolling through it, and then I got interested in seeing fights for whatever reason, like street fights. And then they started showing me street fight after street fight, and I started getting into it, like, oh shit, this is crazy. And then I realized again, you gotta protect your energy, man. You're watching this shit, you're gonna go be violent now. You keep watching this shit, you're gonna go get in a street fight for no reason. So then I completely stopped. Every time I saw that, I would scroll as fast as I could, and then it went back to my original content where it was more uplifting, spiritual, high vibrational things that I can now be proud of watching and becoming. So then that's kind of what my process was I'm in a shitty place. What's the one thing that I can do right now that can pull me out of this shitty place? See sunshine. Let me see sunshine on my feed. And I actually just saw Gary Vee talk about this on his page, which kind of brings that up, that point too. He said, people tell me all the time they see all this negativity. It's because you're feeding into the negativity. He's like, my feed is fucking sunshine, bro. If I go through my feed, it's all happiness. It's because he made it that way. I made it that way. So even if I go on my Instagram and I'm scrolling, I'm only seeing happiness because that's all I've cared about these last like 2 years. So the algorithm understands that. They know that if they show me anything negative, I'm off the app. I'm closing it immediately. And it's smart. It's smart. It's supposed to reflect who you are.
Ooh.
I know very little about where you came from in terms of the gym that you used to be an owner in, the brands that you used to be a part of. But if I speak from a very outside perspective, I'd like to believe that this is a more positive environment for you now than that was.
It is, because so when we talk about social media, we could cop out and then just create viral content. If I really wanted to, and there was a time I did this, I only posted slap videos because that's all that got me viral content. I got over 40 million views over slap videos on TikTok.
And by the way, let's just clarify. This is slapping people on the back.
On the back.
While they do workouts.
Yeah. for
Yeah, I, was
powerlifting.
like, I got it, but I was like, wait,
I was like, there might be somebody
I'm just
in
out
here.
slapping the fuck out of people.
Like,
Slap.
Straight to Walmart, just
Yeah.
knocking people out.
So that's the one thing that I'm so glad I got away from, the things that I got away from, because they were looking for the clout no matter how negative it was. If it didn't matter on who made like it didn't matter if that person looked like shit or if it made us look like shit. As long as the views were high, that's all that mattered. Because when people look at social media and they say there's no such thing as bad clout, no, there is. And that energy is a fucking virus, dude. It'll spread, and then you could change a culture. Like, say I had videos that have 5 million, 6 million views. Imagine that is literally a trend-setting amount of people that they can see something and change their view on whatever issue I posted about, and then start living their life like that.
Dang.
That's influence. That's real influence. Like, not all my videos are like that, but I had to look back and be like, if I changed the culture from this video, would I be proud of myself for it? And if I get people happy about slaps, then am I really making a difference? Am I really hitting the mark that God said for me? Not really. I'm just in it for myself. I'm just in it so people will know who I am, and I'm in it just for the selfishness of being popular. I had to pull myself away from that, and that's all the guys that I used to be with cared about. They just cared about the views. They just cared about the notoriety in terms of being popular, but they didn't really care about purpose. I care about purpose. I care about changing people's lives for the better. And so I had to change my situation. So as much as it hurt doing it, because whenever you leave a situation in a way that you know that's not good for you, you're gonna receive an avalanche of negativity and bad shit that comes with it. But you have to be willing to fight through that adversity to get to a brighter side. And then I was willing to do those things, even though the last 3-4 years of my life have been really fucking hard, because of that transition from being Topo from Strength Cartel to being Chris Gordert has been a hard transition, because I had to fight all the negativity that I created being in this group. Because people keep identifying me with those structures that I created back then. And I'm not the same guy I was back then. And I don't believe in the same shit I am, because I changed my circle. I changed my circumstances. I changed the view of what I wanted to do in the world. And that means more to me than anyone I used to be, or how they looked at me when I was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a question for, and not to like, beat the dead horse, or like if you already answered it, what was, because obviously, the platform that you have, the influence back then and even now, what would you say was like the one thing that like made you be like, yo, Chris, you need to like change? Like, what was that one thing that like made you switch and allowed you to switch? And the reason I'm asking that is because, for other people that are, gaining that clout, whatever you want to call it, and that are in that bad clout, however you want to say it, to allow them, like, what's the way to get out of that, in a sense? What made you switch to be, in a sense, I guess, better, grow?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question.
It is a really good question. It's finding your why. And my why, so it might be a little bit different because you might not have it, is kids. My children. So I had to sit down and really think, will my kids be proud of the person that I'm depicting today? And then when I realized that my kids would sit down there and be like, they might not be super proud of the person I was actually depicting to people, then that caused the change in me. And that caused the want to change in me. Because I knew that everything, so when I grew up, all I've really cared about is leaving a legacy for my children. I've always dreamed of this moment that my kids could walk into a building or anywhere I am, say if I pass away, I wish that my kids can walk places and be like, I knew your dad, and he was an amazing person. He did everything for everybody else and never cared about himself. He only cared about the things that he could do for others. And to see the light in my kids' eyes, knowing who their father was in that sense, was everything to me. And then if I would have stayed in that position and my kids would have walked up and said something about me, like, oh, your dad was a troublemaker, your dad liked to start conflict, or he liked to feed into negativity, my kids would be embarrassed in those moments that people would talk about me. And then that was a reality check for me, because I took a step back and I started looking at all the shit I was doing, and I was like, man, will my kids actually be proud of me? And then that causes the shift. And once the shift happened, I knew that it wouldn't be immediate. I wouldn't just become a different person overnight, but I was courageous enough to make that first step. And then the next step came next. And I just took it day by day. Every single day I was like, you gotta do your meditation. You gotta take your cold showers. You have to read. You have to do these things that your future self or your highest self needs you to do to become that person. And so that's what I do. To this day, for the last 2.5 years, I meditate every day for more than an hour. I take cold showers every single day, 2 of them. And I sit in the cold shower and wait till that angst gets out of me, that anxiety gets out of me, because I know that that's a reset button for me. I have learned my own mental health shit, and I've learned the things that work for me, and I'm just now disciplined. I'm disciplined every day of what I'm doing because I know the result of what I'm doing, and it's becoming the best person possible.
And you know the why. And let me tell you something. I'm going to give you your flowers right now. That's exactly what your kids are going to hear from us.
I hope so, man. I lose sleep of that. Oh, fuck, you're about to make me emotional. I lose sleep over the fact that my kids get to be proud of the person that I'm becoming. And I'm getting a little emotional right now, but
all good.
I don't want to bash my dad because I'm not that person. I didn't get to have that. And I got to see kids having that growing up, and I always thought that was the coolest thing. And I just promised myself that no matter what I did in my life, that my kids' view of it would be my number one priority. And I would hope that everything that I've done, they can look back on it, because now everything is documented. Every single post that I do today is going to be seen 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah, that scares me.
And and if I could sit down and talk about it now, I'm happy with that, because I've put out real, purposeful things. I want to change people's life. I have guys, DMing me, telling me that they're going to kill themselves on Christmas, but I posted something that made it so that they didn't want to do that. Like, I can be proud of those things, and my kids can be proud of those things. And then I'm putting good people around me. This is what matters to me, because I am the 6, 7 people that I hang out with and that I'm around, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I've done the work and I've X'd out certain people that I knew were not good for me, and I've allowed these people to walk in my lives and then be catalyst to what I was trying to do. You're a catalyst for what I'm trying to do in my life. And so that's why I appreciate the things that we're doing, and that's why I let you take the lead on a lot of things, because I know that we can't do this alone. And it's going to take we opposed to me, and I know that you're one of those people for me, right? And I'm hoping that I'm that person for you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We've spoken about each other in a number of times, and I know for a fact it will remain true throughout the rest of our history together, which will be a very, very long time. Andrew, you're coming into that fold now, and I'm really happy you're here.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'm really happy you're here. So we'll be hitting you up a lot, and
say less, I'll be there.
Keep that phone on. Make
you
sure
said keep that phone on.
We're here for you, Chris. I want to go back to something that you said a little bit earlier. How, if you could give it to me in a percentage, I like practicality. You know that about me. How much attention did you lose when you made that transition from negativity to positivity?
So the first initial steps, you almost lose everything. You lose 100% of everything that you used to have and everything that you were. But I got to a point that I was okay with that. And then I said, let me break my whole foundation down. Let me break my whole house down, and let me build it the right way. Let me lay down these bricks the way that I want them to be laid, because somebody else laid my foundation for me, and then my whole fucking house collapsed on me, and then I didn't know what to do. So then, as a man that lost everything, the best thing you can do is just start building again. So when I did that, I took my time in laying my foundation, because I knew that the house that I'm building now is bigger than the one I used to have before. So I made sure that my foundation can withhold that type of structure. And now I'm here and I'm building this foundation, and I'm in awe of what I've done. And so then that's where the true self-love comes in, because now I'm proud of myself. I look back at what I've done and what me and my girl have done and what we faced and all the adversities that we had to overcome, and I'm proud of what we've done, because our house was our house together, and both our houses got torn down. And so we had to sit there, ground zero, and be like, what the fuck are we gonna do, dude? I said, okay, trust me. Let's lay this brick down right here, and let's lay that shit as perfect as possible. Okay, that brick is there. Let me lay this another brick down. Let me lay that as perfectly as possible. You go over there and lay that brick down right there. We're going to do it one day at a time.
Dang.
And we're going to make sure that this structure is as perfectly as a structure could be built, because this is where our family is going to live forever.
That partnership.
Brick by brick,
bro.
That's
brick
where
by
it just
brick, and
clicks.
soon you have a wall.
That's
And
that Will
soon
Smith
you have a
line.
wall.
He said
You want to build a
that.
perfect wall, lay that brick perfectly every single day till that wall is built.
Boy, oh boy. Oh
Dang,
man, let's let that
wow.
marinate for a moment.
It was
Goodness.
hard, man. It was a hard time for me. And because when you're so used to getting attention, like I told you, thousands of people would stand in line to meet us. And then when you're there and then now nobody will stand in line, there's a gut check. And then you have imposter syndrome, being like, what? Who the fuck am I then? Like, I put so much value into what other people thought of me. Like I told you earlier at my house, I put so much value in what people thought of me. So the second that they thought negatively of me, I thought negatively of myself. I hated myself.
Dang.
I thought I was the wrong one. I thought I did everything wrong. But then I realized it was the situation I put myself in. And just because someone burnt my house down doesn't mean that I'll be homeless forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's time for me to go build my next house. Let me go build this next structure. I got the girl that's going to build it with me. Let's invest in ourselves. And that's what we did.
Yeah. I love that you accept the responsibility to say, and maybe one of those embers I lit myself. I was part of the reason that house burned down. Like, that's important is, as we talk about self-awareness, both in the defensive aspect, we also have to recognize what we have done. That's a key fundamental aspect of self-awareness, is saying, I might have fucked this up too.
Yeah.
I was definitely, not might have, I'm sorry, I fucked this up too. I was a part of this.
And that's
I was
the thing,
here when it was happening.
You have to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I don't want to bring up the dirt, but me and you had a conversation about something that happened earlier in your life, right?
Yeah.
And then we had to talk about forgiveness and how you felt like you were to blame for a couple things. And that's where I feel like I thrive in it, because I did lose everything, and I did have a hand in that too, because I could have stopped it at any point in time, but I chose to keep it going.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that life is life, and it's not meant for it to be easy, and sometimes we do go through shit, and it's not our fault.
Yeah.
We have to forgive ourselves for just enduring it, you know? And so there's a lot of things that with her, I tell her, like, even though that other people did things to her or wronged her, that at some point you're going to take a little bit of blame because you think that you were weak enough to let them do that to you. So you have to forgive yourself and be like, you went through what you went through not because you were weak. It's because someone else was fucked up. Just because you endured it doesn't mean that you're the only reason why it happened. Like, you have to give yourself grace because you didn't deserve that, and you don't deserve to blame yourself.
Dang.
So you have to be able to forgive that part.
Yeah, there's a difference between accepting responsibility and then beating yourself up. Okay, so in the last segment, we really left off talking about giving yourself grace. Andrew, I saw you make a face, and I remember that we talked about this a little bit on the last pod. I just want to turn the conversation over to you. Grace, is that something that you're familiar with? What were you thinking?
I was mostly kind of what Chris said, as far as like allowing yourself forgiveness for like what you've endured. So having grace for yourself. And for me specifically, why that kind of resonated was because like that was me all last year. 2022 was just everything that I went through, you know, obviously with past relationship, and that kind of trickled to like friendships. So it was a big learning curve to being like, dang, like I didn't deserve the stuff that I went through, and then how I was treated after, not only by the individual, but then people associated with us. And so it was very hard just because like I'm a loyal person to the T, and you know, you guys will learn this. I'm loyal to the T, like loyal to the T. Sometimes, like I mentioned last time, more loyal than I should be at times. And I had to learn kind of what Chris had to learn when you said like being okay with cutting people off. And that was super hard for me. Especially because I kind of had that mindset like, dang, I deserved being cheated on. I deserved being played with. I deserved being, you know, talked down on. I deserved all that crap. And I don't mean to get emotional, but it was like thinking about it now, that mindset that I was in that hole, I was like, holy shit, like, now, like I have grace for myself now, being like, you didn't deserve those things, Andrew, like at all. But you went through that for the sole purpose of where you're at now, where you're going to be headed. And so that blew my mind, because it's like, this is like in a dig, but I look at Chris, I'm like, this man ain't got no problems. Like, he's strong. Like he's not emotional. But now hearing like this segment that we've been going through, I'm like, holy cow, if he can go through something like that and get out of it, like I can too, you know what I mean? And so like looking up to that aspect, being like, dang, if he had grace for himself, I should have grace for myself. And it's just constantly, I guess, reminding myself now, because it's still a struggle. Like, I still think about it, how I mentioned overthinking of, like, you didn't deserve that. Because not going to lie, like, my mindset sometimes switches to, like, dang, like, you went through that. And I start kind of almost putting myself back into that hole slowly. And I'm like, dude, Andrew, like, you didn't deserve, like, stop feeling so down about it. Like, have grace for yourself. Like, look at where you're at now. And even, you know, my girl now, she reminds me, she's like, hey, like, you didn't deserve that. That partnership. Reminding me and being like, you didn't deserve that. You're better than that. Look at where you're at now. You're not in that same position. You aren't surrounded by those people. And I'm like, holy cow. And it gets me emotional because I'm like, dang, I went through so much building and having to rebuild my foundation, cutting people off, you know, not listening to certain things, changing my mindset. And a lot of that was, you know, through therapy, switching over. And that's how, like, you know, I'm a big kudos to, like, the three of you guys. Obviously, you know, I just met you and Aisha, but surrounding myself with, you know, specifically the three of you and even other people in my inner circle being like, dang, like, I got people that actually see my value. And that helps me remind myself to have grace. I mean, like, those people that I was surrounding myself with that were totally, I thought were my best friends, but they were hitting up, you know, homegirl after everything that happened and doing, you know, shady stuff like that and doing things like that. I'm like, dang, like, I am true to myself and loving and being loyal to you guys, but you guys couldn't do that to me, you know? And so, again, it's just having grace, but still allowing myself to, like, be vulnerable with you guys. 'Cause I'm going to be honest with you, especially because I've known you a little longer. Reggie was, like, talking to you about what I went through. At first, I was like, I don't know if I should tell Reggie to open up, because what if this motherfucker does the same thing? Like, he's just trying to get, in a sense, ammo for him to shoot at me later when it comes to his advantage. And that's the biggest thing that I'm struggling with still, building process, but that I'm struggling with now is not looking at it that way. So changing my mindset to be okay. I'm not necessarily giving you ammo. I'm just being open. I have to constantly change. I have to constantly remind that.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Let me say two things. Number one, thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting us. Now you're trusting pretty much the whole world.
Yeah.
And that is what you're talking about, which leads me into the second part. The greatest defense you can ever have is to be completely transparent and open. Because Chris and I, and now I'm seeing it in you, we put everything out. We put it all out. We're like, this is who we are. What you see is what you get. And now you can't attack me. You can't mess with me because we already talked about our losses. Yeah. Trust me, we talked about some stuff. Bro, I have made money and lost money. I have had a woman and lost a woman. I have had myself mentally and lost myself mentally. Chris has had all of those same things coupled with children. Children, like, and then he's speaking about these different things. He's bringing those things out into the world. He doesn't have to do that. You don't have to do that. But with all great things, what you put out is what you get back. And because we put out that level of positivity to be genuine, to be ourselves, because we believe there's value in it for other people, subconsciously, we may know this, but I'm going to tell it to you consciously. The world gives it all back to you. These are very spiritual people you're sitting around. I'm finding my spirituality. But let me tell you something. One thing I do know about this universe is that what you put out is what comes back to you. I'm not saying that you're not going to face hard times.
Yeah.
There's yin and yang in life, which is something I want to dive into next. But what I am saying is karma is real. It's a real thing, and it does not always manifest. Sometimes it manifests itself immediately. You ever seen someone cut you off in traffic and they get cut off and you're like, that's karma. It doesn't always work like that. It's not always that immediate. Yeah. But Andrew, I have to tell you, by you being transparent and you saying this is who I am, not only are you helping other individuals, but what's coming back from karma is this ability for you to do exactly what you just said. You can now stand in the fire. Because all those arrows they're throwing at you, you're like, bro, I just gave you those arrows. Like, you're not hurting me. I already knew what you're gonna say. It's like the 8 Mile at the end when Eminem is rapping. He's like, I do live in a trailer park with my mom. Yeah. Like, bro, like you
Clarence.
Like you can't hurt somebody with something that they've already volunteered.
Dang.
We've already volunteered this information, and I'll be honest with you, this is the little bit of ego that I let out to protect my family. They not coming for you, bro, because we're right here. So what are they going to say? Because I'll stay up till 1 a.m. in the morning so you don't have to and go back and forth with somebody. Because I'm petty. I'm not petty about me. I'm petty about you. And I know when somebody comes at me sideways, you think he's not going to have a problem with that? Somebody comes at him sideways, you think I'm not going to have a problem with that? Yeah. I'm not going to mention the person, but he was like, man, I really hope I never have to run into an issue with this particular individual. And all of a sudden, my ego just came firing up. I was like, I hope we have a fucking, like, I want, like, and that's, of course, we don't ever want to encourage violence. Yeah. We are not proponents of violence. We will never endorse that. But what I will tell you is the one time where I feel like violence is, and I will say this on camera, I don't care what anybody thinks, the one time where violence is absolutely necessary is when you attack my family. I will not stand idly by and watch that happen. I will be on you. I will be on you. So you have a group. It's not just you anymore, Andrew.
Yeah, and to touch on that, that's another big lesson that I guess I'm learning is is not in a sense feeling like alone, you know?
Talk to me about it. Talk to me about it, my brother. Because you're not anymore. How does it feel? Trust me, I wake up on those days and I think I'm alone too sometimes.
Yeah.
But you're not anymore. You found your family. You found your tribe. As long as you rock with us, we rock with you.
Yeah.
It's never going to change. No matter how much money you have. We hang out with a dude named Keanu. Let's just be honest with you. Keanu has more resources than us.
Yeah.
Keanu's around us.
Yeah.
What do I have?
Yeah.
What do I have? You know what I have, Andrew? The same thing you have. I have integrity.
Yeah.
That's all I got, bro. You take the clothes off my back, Andrew. That's all I got.
Yeah.
You don't need anything else. None of this shit matters. Look around. These cameras don't matter. Those cars don't matter. It's great. If you can have them, if you can afford them, if you can afford luxuries, by all means, indulge responsibly. But at the end of the day, you need to come to terms with the fact that those things do not matter. What matters is what's happening right here.
Yeah. And that's the constant thing that I'm learning. Because even like my girl, she's like, the first thing she says every single time when I feel like, when I get in my head, she's like, you're not alone. Like, you're not alone. Because that's like the biggest struggle that I had last year was after everything, and like even like other stuff, like, my grandma passed away, like, I had to take care of, like, my sister, mental health, like a whole bunch of stuff happened just back to back. My mom's health, just being like, holy mother F, excuse me, mama, but like feeling like I was like, dang, I'm alone. Not only am I going through stuff, my family's going through stuff, and being like the older brother, it's like they all look to me to be like, yo, you're gonna provide, you're gonna do this. And I'm like, damn, not only do I got shit going on, they got shit going on, and they're relying on me, so on and so forth. And so feeling alone, like constantly just feeling alone. And then especially when I hit rock bottom and I had to make, cut those people off and be like, okay, they're not good for me, they're not gonna add any value to my life, is when I felt the most alone, because I was like, damn, now I got no one. And the people that I do have, my family, they're going through shit. So I can't really like lean on them because I don't want to give them the burden of my stuff because they have the burden already, and I constantly feel like a burden to everyone. Constantly. And so having to learn, like, I'm not alone and I'm not a burden, having grace. And so that's the biggest thing, is going into this year is being like, okay, like I've built myself as an individual to be, content, be good, be happy. I feel like I was constantly trying to be validated by other people. Like I had to always be around people because I couldn't be alone. I went through what I went through alone to be able to build me up, to be okay to be alone, to be good to be alone. And then now surround myself with good people to make me not feel alone at the same time. And that's something that I'm still struggling with. Like on air, like I'm still struggling with that at times, even when I do have all these people around me. And it's just one of those things that I'm just constantly trying to have to remind myself all the time.
Thank you for being vulnerable. I'm going to ask an even deeper question. What is the specific thing that you struggle with? The thought of these people leaving, the thought that you're burdening them now, like now what's the struggle? I'll tell you mine first. Mine is, I worry that these people are all going to leave. I said this at the barbershop. I said, I'm worried that one day, even though I believe in who I am as a person, I said that one day I'm scared that I'm going to wake up and these people are all going to be like, wait, Reggie isn't worth it. He's not worth it.
Yeah.
What is it for you?
I kind of like the same as what you're saying, kind of like almost like disappointed. Like I'm not worth a person to have around. You know what I mean? I'm not worth, kind of like in a sense like how you're saying what was your friend's name? The one that has a lot more resources? You said
Keanu.
Keanu.
Guy.
In a sense like that, like what does Andrew have to bring?
Andrew.
So what you've
Nothing.
been through and then what people put you through, it devalued you as a person.
Yeah.
And how you looked at yourself.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to find that value and you're scared that someone's going to see you as not valuable anymore. And then they'll leave you, right?
Yeah, because that's how it was. Yeah.
But I think there's power in being able to lick your own wounds. You wouldn't have the mindset or the perspective right now if you wouldn't had to go into the darkness by yourself. Because as much as Aisha helped me, when I was at my lowest point, I had to go to battle by myself. She supported that journey, and she was there if I needed anything. But when she would go to work, I would meditate for I meditated for 9 hours straight, like a monk, because I needed to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I had to lick my own wounds. I had to make sure that I was okay. And so when in those moments, I think that God puts us in those moments so that we're able to figure it out by ourselves, because there's power in knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowing that you can get through something you endure is knowledge, and that makes you more powerful. Now you're in a position right now that you're solid by yourself. That's when you bring in other people. And then that's where you have it. You can actually add value to relationships, because now you're solid as a single.
Is it not okay to be with people if you're not solid yet?
I think it makes it 20 times harder. I think that when we were talking about having grace with ourselves and then what people have done with us, the thing that kept resonating with me was the book that I told you to read, is the four agreements. One of the agreements is never take anything personal, because everybody's actions are just a reflection of the traumas that they've been through, and they had defense mechanisms created just to make it through. So a whole bunch of people are walking around hurt. All these people on this beach right now are walking right now because they're hurt. They have something that caused something in their life that caused a defense mechanism that they don't like about themselves. I'm insensitive, or I'm insecure. Why? Because someone cheated on me. I trusted someone and they broke my trust. I created a defense mechanism to get through that hard time. That's the reflection that people are giving to us on a day-to-day basis. A guy goes to my comment section, "Chris, you're fat." I know I'm not fat. I know that you're going through something because you're trying to take my self-esteem down to get on my level, because I'm miles ahead of you, so you're trying to take me down levels so that we can see eye to eye.
Bring me back home, though, because I know you're the man for the job. If I'm going through a hard time and I don't have a team, is it okay for me to embrace a team and a family? I know it makes it harder.
I think that you should be able to find yourself by yourself first. And I think that if you could sit in the dark with your mind, because that's what we're running away from. That's what I was running away from. I was running away from my thoughts. I was using others to distract myself from actually looking at what the fuck I was thinking about. Because I was thinking, you're a piece of shit. You hurt these people. You're not worth nothing. You shouldn't even be alive because you're willing to hurt people and you don't care about the repercussions of that. I was beating myself up for the things that I did, and I didn't want to think about it anymore. It took me sitting down and being like, you might have done those things, but I forgive you, Chris. And then once I was released from that trauma, I was a whole different person. I woke up differently. I spoke differently. I took things seriously in different ways. Like, it's just a whole different type of thing. I know people have support systems, but that's the thing. If you have a crutch, you're more likely to lean on it. If you don't have a crutch, you're going to figure out a different way. Gotcha. And as a human being, when you're in a situation, you might think your life is over because you're going through something hard. But guess what? If you wake up tomorrow, does that mean you lost? No, it means you fucking won. You're still living. You're still fighting. The fight is not over yet.
I'm concerned about the people who don't wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I am too, and that's the reason why we're sitting here.
Yeah.
Because we have to talk about this stuff. Because some people don't think they can do it by themselves. They think they need people to save them. They need a hero. They need someone to come in on their white horse and then save me from this nightmare. Yeah. No, you know how long I waited for someone to come save me before I was like, no one's coming, Chris. Time to buckle down, sit down, and actually introduce yourself to yourself. Hey, my name is Chris. I fucked up. Let's figure it out. And then once you're willing to figure it out, yes, it's going to be hard. And there's going to be times that you're going to want to give up. And you're like, I don't know what the next step is. But as long as you're willing to make that fight, you're going to figure it out.
Okay. So let me say this, because I think I might be back on the same chapter of the same book with you. Mm-hmm. What you're not saying is that they can't seek out help, therapy, wellness of some kind.
So that, to me, is going through it by yourself, too. Being able to seek help is understanding. You have to sit down with yourself first to know that you need help. So that's the initial step.
Okay.
It's like, I have to sit down. I have to do a self-audit of what I'm going through, where I am mentally.
Gotcha.
Now, do I sit there and be like, okay, yeah, I need a therapist. And there's nothing wrong with that. I had to be my own therapist. I had to sit down and I had to walk myself through mental health. I had to research what other people were doing to make sure that they weren't feeling like that anymore. And then I applied it, and then I had discipline. But I think that you have to initially sit down and be like, clear my mind of all the bullshit that society's telling us, that social media is telling us. Because once you really sit down and then you calm your mind, then a little voice comes in, and you could call it God, you can call it your higher self, you can call it whatever. But that voice of reason that comes in is guiding you to the right path, to the righteous path, to wherever you're supposed to be in your highest timeline. So I started listening to that voice. You call it God, you call it whatever you want, but that voice was leading me towards a better life, and I trusted that. But I had to get rid of all the fucked up shit that was going on in my head first, and that I got rid of that through meditation. Mindfulness, awareness of myself, self-awareness is how I got to that point. And I wouldn't be able to have done it if I kept relying on other people to do it for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and kind of jump on that. That's when you mentioned therapy. Like that's for me. Like I tried going at it alone, and just the situation that I was in, it was hard, and I did go through it alone. Like it was pretty much most of 2023 or 2022, and then we talked about it. I ended up starting going to therapy. I've been going for like almost a year now, and it helps so much. Like, don't get me wrong. Like the way my therapist put it, he's like, that wound is now going to be a scar. It's never going to be fully healed. And he's like, that's okay. That wound is going to be a scar. And he's like, that scar is sometimes you're still going to be looking at it. He's like, but now you have the tools to know how to go about it. And so that's where I'm at now, is like when that wound or when that scar is reminded, it's like, okay, now I know how to go about it. And I had to go through it alone. And before, I didn't want to go through anything alone. Like I was like, I had to always constantly be around people. But I feel like for me personally, like it's almost kind of like what you told me, Reggie, was like, God put you in that situation in order to, in a sense, go through it, figure it out on your own, have therapy to get through it. And now you are where you're at now. And then even with the people that I'm surrounding myself with, having to be very selective, golden ticket, what we talked about last podcast. And I think, what's his name? The podcast, The Toast of Life. I think his name's Luis.
My boy, yeah.
He mentions it. He goes, go where you, he says, go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. And I had to, and that, shout out to him, because that, I've been thinking about that for the last 3 weeks. Just constantly, like, okay, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Go where you're celebrated, not I was constantly going where I was tolerated. Celebrated here and there, whatever.
Honestly, you accept the relationships that you think you deserve. And I was hanging around with a lot of people that were treating me like shit because I felt like shit about myself. Yeah. And then when I actually dove in and then healed myself, I started valuing myself. I started loving myself. So then now, why would I ever put up with anybody that's not loving me? You know? So then your whole environment is a reflection of who you feel like inside.
100%. 100%. And I've even seen it in the last 6 months, whatever we want to call it, is people that it's a lot easier now for me, that people that aren't adding value or aren't treating me right, for me to simply be like, okay, I don't want to associate myself with, but if you're not going to add value and you're just going to, your way of gaining power for yourself is by trying to hurt me, I'm not going to stoop down to that level. I'm just going to let you, if that's what you want to do that. But now I'm going to give my attention. I'm going to take that golden ticket back. I'm going to now allow myself to shift that energy or attention, whatever you want to call it, to the people that actually matter. A, B, C, and so on and so forth.
Yes. 2 points that I want to make. One's more of a point and one's a direction I kind of want to take us in. The first of which is, sometimes you even meet people who seem to be somewhat positive, but once you get really good at reading energies, you're like, this just doesn't feel right. Maybe it's just not right for me. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I would have people consider that. Like, maybe that energy's not right for me, and I'm not right for them. But sometimes you just feel an energy. You're like, man, you're smiling. I can see your teeth, but I don't know about this situation. This doesn't.
Yeah.
Something does not sit right in my.
Yeah.
Some people call it a gut.
Mhm.
What do you call it?
Intuition.
Mm.
And that's deeper to me on a spiritual level. So I believe that we all have guardian angels, spirit guides. Some people call them spirit guides. That intuition comes from your spirit guides letting you know in whatever sense. So like, I forgot what the saying was, but I always felt like my guardian angels was going to show the things that were said about me when I wasn't there in my gut. So if I had someone around me that was acting funny or acting cool to my face and talking shit behind my back, I got that intuition.
You still got it back.
When they were in front of me, I felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No matter how cool they were trying to be with me. And then it ended up being right. I ended up finding out those things later on that was the case. So I think intuition to me is huge. And I think that in order to have intuition, like I said earlier, you have to calm your mind. That voice isn't the loudest voice in your head. The things that you've created through your life are the loudest voices. Your ritual, your habits, the things that I've created so I can protect myself from whatever. If I walked across the street, got hit by a car one time, the next time I walk across the street, I'm gonna be super cautious, and I'm gonna be thinking about that shit. But that's the thing, is that your mind wants to play tricks on you.
Yeah.
You have to be able to calm it down so you could hear the real voices trying to guide you.
Yeah.
And that's your intuition, I think.
I agree. I totally agree. The direction that I wanted to take us in was this. You went through, all of us really went through the phase of things went well, then things went absolutely not well, right? I talked about this a little bit before. I said I'm not saying that these people aren't valid. I'm not saying that they're not valuable, but I don't necessarily want people who haven't gone through that dark time, right, on my team, because I just know that they have so much more to give and they're closer to where we want to be and where I want us to be. And this is what I mean by us making sure that we provide value. And I use this word quite often. I say that we have an obligation, Andrew, and I'm going to say it to you now because I've already said it to Chris and Aisha. You have an obligation now that you've moved past that dark time and now that you've found a team to reinforce your morals.
Yeah.
I now feel like you have an obligation to also take what you believed from what I said was God giving you those tough battles and then helping you out of that dark time, to also pass that wisdom, that knowledge, and pass that positivity on to other people.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it is the epitome of value. I don't see anything more important in front of me. No car, no house, no girl. I don't see anything that's more important than us using what I can only quantify as a gift and classify as a gift to help other people. I don't see another purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're starting on. And I feel like, respectfully, I'm at a point where I'm looking at him like, there he is. Oh, here he comes. And these next few years for you, Andrew, are going to be really special, but they're going to be really important as well.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a team of people who's reminding you, like, that's great, but you have to do the internal work and have the internal dialogue to make sure that you structure and make sure that you build your output.
Yeah.
Full circle. You've managed and you've learned the input. You dealt with what was happening inside. Now it's your responsibility to make sure that you structure the output in a way that's impactful. Guys, I think we can leave it right there.
Yes, we can.
No,
This was an absolute pleasure.
Such a pleasure.
I can't say thank you enough. Andrew, before we ended, I want to say great minds think alike. You had a tough week. I had a tough week. And for anyone who's listening, Andrew said something to me at the gym yesterday. He said, this week was so hard, I just couldn't wait to get out here and do this. And at the end of the day, whether it's high vibes only, whether it's I'm sorry I wasn't listening, whether it's a toast to life, or all of the other beautiful mediums for listening, learning, and loving, we want to make sure that you all feel confident and comfortable in coming into this scenario with us, sitting down, listening, learning, and please feel free to comment, feel free to leave your opinions, good or bad. We're going to work with you on them, and I promise we're watching, I promise we're listening. It may seem like this is a one-way medium, but it's really not. We're here for you as long as you are here for us. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.